Secrets. Secrets and power is the currency of fools. Yes, weak are the ones that will do anything for power and for secrets.
The game we're looking at today is the Daemon Trilogy, Subrosa, the first in a trilogy of games that take place in the same universe, a universe in which families are vying for power by using dark arts and manipulative tactics and assassins to get the upper hand over other families. Once the entire deck is dealt out to all players at the start of the game, players look at their hand of cards, they select two that they like, and place them face down in front of them. This is a meaner, more calculating draft game. You're not just building up a tableau in front of you, but rather you're building up an army that you use to fulfill contracts as well as to attack other players. So you have to decide the balance between what weapons do you need to have in front of you and what pawns do you need to fulfill contracts to earn points at the end of the game. And the fact that this is a meaner drafting game is something I like. I like that this takes something easy and generally not terribly confrontational and puts some unique spins on it. The player that earns the most points by fulfilling contracts at the end of the game wins. After drafting 2 cards, players then choose to either draw contracts or use one of their cards in their tableau. Approaching this game, the very first thing you're going to notice is its clean aesthetic feel. This game is, at least on the surface, polished. The art direction is clean and crisp. The box and graphic design play right into the feel of the game. And right off the bat, it's an invitation into intrigue with a top-notch level of production. On the surface, anyway. Digging a little deeper, there's a few cracks. While the art and design is certainly consistent, it's to a fault. There are 2 different types of cards, and the card backs are just too similar for my taste, making separating the two at a glance just slightly more annoying than I would have liked. That's a minor gripe. In the game, you modify the deck size, removing specific cards depending on your player count. My biggest gripe with the design, despite most of it being stellar, is that the cards you remove are named in the rulebook but not easily identifiable on the cards themselves. It would have taken very little to add a small 3+ in the corner of cards that you use in a game with 3 or more players. Without that very simple addition, setting up the game requires organizing all the cards so that you only take out the 3 copies of specific cards you need. My eyes did not find this a natural process, and it lengthens the setup a great deal, to the point where I dreaded playing a game with less than the maximum player count, specifically because I had to go through the separation process. Subrosa is touted as an app-assisted game. Ideally, the companion app is booted up and passed around the table for each turn. Players can scan one of their cards in their tableau and select in-app who to attack. This allows for an otherwise unobtainable level of secrecy that I thought was a really cool aspect of the game, where you are selecting face-down cards in front of you and secretly selecting who it's going to happen to. The app then reveals what happens, but not necessarily who did it to who. My initial knee-jerk reaction was actually against this, but once seeing it in effect, the intrigue and paranoia really ramped up in a great way. There's no hidden traitor, everyone is after everyone, but you might not be able to pinpoint where an attack is coming from. When it works well, and you instantly start glaring at everyone at the table looking for tells. At the time of playing this, the app wasn't fully fleshed out to the point that the developers had hoped. The idea was that people could have their individual phones, scan their cards separately, and everything would be revealed all on individual phones. That wasn't the case. Now, passing around a single device became clunky and unwieldy and ultimately annoying. Especially since scanning the card, when you held up the app, it didn't have a viewfinder. You kind of just held it there, and you hoped that the camera would eventually recognize the card, and when it did, it worked, and it worked well. The problem was it didn't work quickly. And with this game, where it's supposed to be sort of a lighter take-that drafting game, it really muddles up the speed of the game and the flow of the game, and that excitement and momentum is lost because of your reliance on the app. Now, like a lot of games, the app is not necessary. However, you lose one of the big selling points and one of the big features of this game by not using the app. And that's something you have to weigh. Is this a game where you're going to rely on a technology that isn't ultimately fleshed out enough to be a smooth experience, or do you forego it and have sort of a subpar drafting game? Now, like I said, it has a lot of really interesting things going for it, but this is something that's really lost and really wasted, unfortunately. Ultimately, what we've got is a little box with a lot of potential, And it's not a bad game, it just suffers from having really solid ideas that aren't mechanically fleshed out or streamlined. It's a beautiful little presentation that has me eager to see what the next game in the trilogy might hold. The concept is cool, the art and graphic design are top-notch, and it boldly tries on unexpected things, but ultimately it didn't interest me enough to be able to fully look past the flaws.